All right, so we are doing Sri Nisargadatta's I Am That, and we're well into the chapter 26, Personality as an Obstacle, because, as you know, Vivekananda says that our personality is really just a collection of limitations and restrictions. It's a collection of likes and dislikes, attractions and aversions, and then just a bunch of describing attributes to ourself, most of which belong to mind or body. And so this is our obstacle because we can't be true to ourselves until we know ourselves. And so until we know ourselves as divine, we're out of integrity with ourselves. And so that has to be fixed by letting go of these wrong ideas, by uh, expanding infinitely, actually, but certainly expanding as far and as best as we can at the moment. So he's been talking to our questioner here, and they've kind of formulated this idea that we all live in our own universe. And I get the idea that we pick up sort of a template in a general way, the one that we share, of what the universe is, assuming that there is anybody in my world besides me. And and that the universal mind kind of builds the whole, and then each of us takes our own neighborhood out of that universal whole and creates our own world, our own universe, our own take on the divine universe, our own understanding of it, and we go forward. And so our questioner last week, just before we ended, asked, "How does it happen that each man creates his own world?" And Maharaj answered, "When a number of people are asleep, each dreams his own dream. Only on awakening, the question of many different dreams arises and dissolves when they are all seen as dreams, as something imagined." Right? And so he's just saying that, yes, everybody has their own universe, their own world that they live in. And it's only when you're awakened that you realize that all of us had a separate universe that we were living in, but we can't be aware of that until we break out of our individual universe. And then once we realize that everybody really did have their own universe, it doesn't matter because it was a dream anyway. And so you know how that is. You wake up in the morning, and as soon as you realize it was a dream, then you don't continue to worry about anything. You just go on and go forward. And so the questioner says, "Yeah, but even dreams have a foundation." And this is a very important point, because it's very true. And this is why Thakur didn't hold fast to the idea that all of this is an illusion. He says, what you think it is the illusion. But there is something there, but it's not what you think it is. It's just like watching a movie. The movie is not what you think it is. It's not a story. It's not about the colors, and it's not about the changing. The movie is actually a white screen reflecting light. That's the reality of the movie, and that's what's always present, always behind the movie. That is the one unchanging thing about watching a movie. But we don't pay attention to the one unchanging thing of the movie. We pay attention to the colors and the changing elements of the movie, the soundtrack, and the video track. And so that's where we get our story, and that's where we get our involvement, and that's why we go to the movies. We don't go to the movies to watch the white screen. And so this is what Thakur is saying about this universe. Yes, it does have a foundation. He's right in that. And so, but Maharaj here is he's going to go more for the subject. He says, yes, it has a foundation, but it's in memory. All right. So there's still an unreality to that. In memory, even then, what is remembered is but another dream. Right? The memory of the false cannot but give rise to the false. There is nothing wrong with memory as such. What is false is its content. Remember facts and forget opinions. All right. This is very good, because his next question is a great question for this date and time. He says, well, what is a fact? And Maharaj says, what is perceived in pure awareness, unaffected by desire? That is what is real. Something that is not projected by mind as the result or the quest for desire, that is perceived in a pure awareness, an awareness with no me and mine in it, an awareness that just sees as the witness, does not have any defining characteristics in itself, except that Satchitananda. So that is the fact. Until we are able to have that, everything falls into its place in our dream because it's defined by our dream. We pick up an object and we use our dream, our imagination, our memory, our experience to describe that object and to give that object meaning in our private universe. And so all of the things in our private universe, we've assigned a value to it, even though really, in essence, all things have a single value, right? Or no value, or an optional value until they meet the divine self. And then they get a value: positive, negative, helpful, unhelpful. Or if you're enlightened, just is. They just are. They are divine. So their value is in the reality behind them and not in their appearance. All right, so chapter 27, the beginningless begins forever. The beginningless begins forever. Questioner: the other day I was asking you about the two ways of growth, renunciation and enjoyment, yoga and boga. The difference is not so great as it looks. The yogi renounces to enjoy. The bogi enjoys to renounce. The yogi renounces first. Maharaj: so what? So what? Leave the yogis to his yoga and the bogi to the boga, right? Why are you dragging this in? What's your point? You know, it's because he's getting at it, because really the guy's real point is he wants his bogi. He wants his boga, and he wants to be the yogi, and so he doesn't want to be separated out and categorized out. He wants to philosophize himself into right standing. That's my projection at this point, but I bet it's where he's coming from. So Maharaj says, so what? Leave the yogi to his yoga and the bogi to boga. No questioner: the way of boga seems to me the better one. There it is. Enjoyment is the better route. The yogi is like a green mango. Oh my goodness. The chutzpah this man's developing. It's wonderful. The yogi is like a green mango separated from the tree prematurely and kept to ripen in a basket of straw. Airless and overheated, it does get ripe, but the true flavor and fragrance are lost. The mango left on the tree grows to full size, color, and sweetness, a joy in every way. Yet somehow yoga gets all the praises and boga all the curses. As I see it, boga is the better of the two. Maharaj: okay, what makes you say so? Questioner: well, I watch the yogis and their enormous efforts, even when they realize there is something bitter or astringent about it. They seem to spend much of their time in trances, and when they speak, they merely voice their scriptures. At their best, such jnanis are like flowers, perfect, but just little flowers, shedding their fragrance within a short radius. There are some others who are like forests, rich, varied, immense, full of surprises, a world in themselves. There must be a reason for this difference. Well, you said it. According to you, one got stunted in his yoga, while the other flourished in boga. Questioner: is it not so? The yogi is afraid of life and seeks peace, while the bogi is adventurous, full of spirits, forward-going. The yogi is bound by an ideal, while the bogi is ever ready to explore. Boy, this man, you could go for a lot of lessons just in his perspectives here, because this is how we get entangled. This is when you start with a goal, which is basically to justify your desire for enjoyment, and then you build and twist your philosophy around that to support your ideal of what you like to think or how you're comfortable thinking. You can create a world that turns in on itself and seems from its inside to be quite reasonable and quite straightforward, and yet you're building one assumption on top of another assumption without any investigation into those assumptions to find out how could that be true. The thing that he says, the yogi is afraid of life and seeks peace. afraid of life. How is that possible? He's staring it straight in the goal, straight in the eye, walking away from all of his supports. And
To
the
me,
bogey is adventurous, full of spirit and going forward, right? It's just it's somebody who hasn't met any worldly people. People devoted to enjoyment. I'll just talk about myself. Increases selfishness because everything in the world becomes an object for your enjoyment, including the people around you. You collect them for pleasure. You look at them for pleasure. You reduce them to objects of pleasure constantly. And you yourself get less and less sensitive about that. So his view of the world is very, very, very naive, and not one of experience for sure. So he may be betraying a bit much here. Maharaj says, it is a matter of wanting much or being satisfied with little. The yogi is ambitious while the bogey is merely adventurous. Your bogey seems to be richer and more interesting, but it is not so in reality. The yogi is narrow as the sharp edge of a knife. He has to be to cut deep and smoothly, to penetrate unerringly the many layers of the faults. The bogey worships at many altars. The yogi serves none but his own true self. There is no purpose in opposing the yogi to the bogey, right? He's saying your whole argument is he's getting to the point, actually, what we just mentioned. It's like there's no inherent purpose in comparing a bogey to a yogi or criticizing one or comparing them to each other. He's bringing the guy closer down to the root of what's going on. He's saying, what's causing you to make an unimportant argument? What's causing you to make an issue of something that's not an issue, right? What is the seed of your inquiry here? There is no purpose in opposing the yogi to the bogey. The way of outgoing, pravritti, necessarily precedes the way of returning, nivritti. To sit in judgment and allot marks is ridiculous. Everything contributes to the ultimate perfection. Some say there are three aspects of reality: truth, wisdom, and bliss. He who sees truth becomes a yogi. He who seeks wisdom becomes a jnani. He who seeks happiness becomes the man of action. We are told of the bliss of non-duality. Such bliss is more of the nature of a great peace. Pleasure and pain are the fruits of actions, righteousness and unrighteousness. Well, what makes the difference? The difference is between giving and grasping. Whatever the way of approach, in the end, all becomes one. If there is no difference in the goal, then why discriminate between various approaches? Let each act according to his nature, Maharaj says. The ultimate purpose will be served in any case. All your discriminations and classifications are quite all right, but they do not exist in my case. As the description of a dream may be detailed and accurate, though without having any foundation, so does your pattern fit nothing but your own assumptions. You begin with an idea and you end with the same idea under a different garb. All right, just pointing out where are you going with this, and why are you going with this, and what are you actually doing? What is actually being accomplished? Piling thoughts on top of thoughts into little piles or even little castles is of no value, right? You can fully understand religion. You can fully understand the philosophy of Vedanta. But if it hasn't touched the heart, if it hasn't produced a discernment and a renunciation within you, then what good is it to you? Knowledge for its own sake is of no value. You can stack it and build it any way you like, just like your dream. You can study the physics of your dream world all night long, and you can write whatever you want to write. And when you awake in the morning, of what good is it? Well, of what benefit was it? You understood the dream perfectly. Good for you. Now it's finished and you have nothing, right? So you go into the next dream. What will you do? Will you do the same thing again? Or will you look for the dreamer? Will you seek the dreamer? So let each act according to his own nature. The ultimate purpose will be served in any case, right? The ultimate purpose, whatever that might be. You know, that's an interesting statement he's got there. The ultimate purpose will be served in any case. All your discriminations and your classifications are fine. They're all right, no problem. But they do not exist in my case, right? They're meaningless to me. So that means the value is intrinsic to you and the world that you've created. As the description of a dream may be detailed and accurate, though without having any foundation, because it's based on what? On unreality, on non-existence. So you've built a case based on nothing. So does your pattern fit nothing but your own assumptions. You begin with an idea and you end with the same idea under a different garb. Well, how do you see things, Maharaj? One and all are the same to me. The same consciousness, Chit, appears as being, Sat, and as bliss, Ananda. Chit in movement is Ananda. Chit motionless is being. Oh, this is beautiful. Oh, here's something to think about. I haven't heard this before. This is quite lovely. It's really a wonderful experience to find these new things, these new nuggets that you kind of sense are going to go somewhere very interesting. Look at this. So what does he say here? One and all are the same to me, the same consciousness, Chit. So he's breaking down Sat Chit Ananda, but look at this. The same consciousness, Chit, appears as Sat and as bliss. Okay, so he's putting the Chit there, giving it the foundational role. So Chit, consciousness, appears as Sat and as bliss, right? Chit in movement, consciousness in movement is Ananda. Okay, it is love, is Ananda in movement. Chit motionless is being, isness. How cool is that? Questioner, well, still you are making a distinction between motion and motionless. Maharaj, non-distinction speaks in silence. Words carry distinctions. The unmanifested, nirguna, has no name. All names refer to the manifested, the saguna. It is useless to struggle with words to express what is beyond words. Consciousness, Chit Ananda, is spirit, Purusha. Consciousness is matter, Prakriti. Imperfect spirit is matter. Perfect matter is spirit. In the beginning, as in the end, all is one. This is quite cool. I'm going to read that again. Non-distinction speaks in silence, right? Obviously, because words are the boundaries. Non-distinction speaks in silence. Words carry distinctions. So if something can be thought about, it's in time-space causation. It's in subject, object, and relationship. That's necessary for language. And language is the programming language, the method of programming the mind. So non-distinction speaks in silence. Words carry distinction. The unmanifested has no name, right? So that which is the ultimate truth has no description, has no handle whatsoever. You cannot attach anything to it. One, because within it you are it. You. All right. So the unmanifested has no name. All names refer to the manifested, because you need name and form, right? Name has to invoke a form, or form will invoke a name. It is useless to struggle with words to express what is beyond words. Consciousness, Chit Ananda, is spirit. Okay, so consciousness is spirit. Consciousness is matter. So consciousness is both matter and spirit. Imperfect spirit is matter. Okay, it's imperfect. So to form an object, to form the sense of another, you have to have some imperfection, some impurity in there, some idea of a boundary or a selfishness. Right? Imperfect spirit is matter, and perfect matter is spirit. Perfect matter is basically consciousness with no objects in it, which would be awareness, which is the highest. So imperfect spirit is matter, and perfect matter is spirit. In the beginning, as in the end, all are one, so the circle will be completed. All division is in the mind, right? Because the mind is what breaks things into parts. Why? Because it takes information in through the senses. So the first thing it has to do when it perceives is break the unity into 5 pieces, right? So it can't do anything but separate. So all division is in the mind. There is none in reality. So the reality is the one without a second. That's what we're looking at. But because we're looking at it with 5 senses, it gets broken. And then when we compare it to experience and memory, it gets aligned inaccurately and creates the world that you and I assume we live in. All division is in the mind. There is none in reality. Movement and rest are states of mind and cannot be without their opposites. By itself, nothing moves, nothing rests. It is a grievous mistake to attribute to mental constructs absolute existence. Nothing exists by itself. Right? This is why God, or that unchanging absolute, is as it were the big top pole in the middle. Without that, there is no circus. There is no play. Right? You need that one unchanging absolute in the center from which everything can be measured and everything can have its existence. A relative universe would collapse in on itself infinitely if it had no unchanging absolute from which everything would be defined, because nothing could have a value in the absence of something else. Right? So you can't have big until you have small. You can't have far away until you have near. And so you need that one thing from which everything is measured to actually hold the space, right, of a relative world. If you don't have that absolute in the middle, you have no unchanging measuring point from which to start your measuring. And the universe, because it's relative, nothing would have meaning. Nothing would have attribute without that unchanging absolute, which might be a big clue in there. All right. All division is in the mind. There is none in reality. Movement and rest are states of mind and cannot be without their opposites. By itself, nothing moves, nothing rests. It is a grievous mistake to attribute the mental constructs absolute existence. To believe your thoughts to be real is what he's saying is a grievous mistake. To believe your thoughts is a grievous mistake. To attribute absolute existence to mental constructs. Nothing exists by itself. Right. Questioner, you seem to identify rest with the supreme state. Maharaj, there is rest as a state of mind, Chitaram, and there is rest as a state of being, Atmaram. The former comes and goes. Okay, so the rest as a state of mind comes and goes, while the true rest is the very heart of action. All right, he's talking about being the witness, really, while the true rest is the very heart of action, meaning that there is no ego and no ego grasping involved in at the very heart of action. That it's identity that causes the I guess the non-rest. You know, it's your attachment to thoughts, your attachments to this assigned reality that you've given to your inner world, and that is what moves you when you're not in rest. Your attachment makes you feel like you're responsible. Your attachment makes you feel like you are the one going and grasping and getting and moving the universe, which is your lack of rest. It's your distraction. And so pure action is the action that arises from no need, the action that that is just manifestation. You know, nobody gets exhausted by keeping their body at 98.6 degrees. right? You don't get exhausted doing that. That's just is. It's part and parcel of existence. And so in this world, when you understand yourself to be the witness and not the doer, this world is just like everything that happens, which others would perceive having to do with you. Everything that they perceive you as doing would be like keeping your body at 98.6. You're not calculating, you're not planning, you're not trying to grab or change or fix. You are simply moving as the universe moves. It's effortless moving on your part. It's effortless action on your part because there is no ego investment in it. There is no karma created by it. Of course, now this is the ideal state. This is the highest thing we can conceive of. So there is a state of mind, chittaram, and there is a state of rest as a state of being, atmaram. The former comes and goes, while the true rest is the very heart of action. Unfortunately, language is a mental tool and works only in opposites. Yeah, so he's saying we're talking about something here that really words themselves cloud it because they force us into the paradigm of mind, right? Words are the tool of mind. And so they force us to use the paradigm of mind, which is past, present, future, subject, object, relationship, time, space, causation. Those three sets of attributes, and there's overlap in those if you think about them, but those three sets of dualities, or three sets of three, there are what keeps us deluded as we sit there using language to try and find the truth, right? So there's a big clue here. Language can't contain the truth. Mental constructs are not absolutely real in themselves. And so he's leading us here step by step towards silent mind, right? Giving us a lot of background as to why this silent mind is not just silent mind, but it's actually an opening to the infinite, becoming aware of that infinite. As a witness, are you working or at rest? Witnessing is an experience. Rest is freedom from experience, right? So he's talking the absolute state here, where there's no sense of I, no sense of separateness from God. This is the state of one without a second. Anything under the one without a second, because as one without a second, even the witness is gone, right? Because in one without a second, what is there to witness? You have to have assumed two to have a witness. So in the highest state, there's not even a witness. Questioner, well, can't they coexist as the tumult of the waves and the quiet of the deep coexist in the ocean? Maharaj says, okay, because again, we're talking about things that are farther away than what we can even point at, really. He says, beyond the mind, there's no such thing as experience, right? If you go beyond mind, all of this disappears. There's nothing there that is what the mind would say. Beyond the mind, there is no such thing as experience. Experience is a dual state. You cannot talk of reality as an experience, all right? Therein lies a big part of our befuddlement. We can't, because we are so identified with mind, because we are so deeply identified with mind, we can't conceive of anything. We cannot. It's hard to accept the reality of something that can't be found in the mind, because we go to the mind for everything. We go to the mind for all of our identity, for a description of who we are. We go to our mind for our Vedanta, for our religion, for our philosophy. We go to mind for our relationships. We go to mind for our age and for our place in the universe and for our description of self. You know, the mind is in fact everything, both in a great way and in a deluded way. In a great way in that it contains all, and pure mind and Brahman are one are one and the same. So yes, mind in that sense is wonderful, but mind, when it becomes everything, but everything as a tool, everything as a doership, everything as karma, experience of karma, then it's a tyrant. You know? And so this this is why it's so difficult, because I always wrestle, because these great sages and these great avatars, when they speak, they're always telling us that realization is easy. This whole process that we're going to is easy. You're just trying to be who you are. How difficult can that be? And yet, we spend lifetimes at it. And so where is this labor coming from? That's my curiosity. It's like, well, why does Mother say I can have it right now, and I can't even conceive of having it right now? Like, I don't know what to do, right? Because we have this whole thing framed incorrectly. That's why even our spiritual life is a vain effort in some regards, because we constantly look at it as it's something that needs to be done, something that I should be doing. And we're framing it wrongly from the first step. And what is the major wrong in the first step? We imagine that it's necessary. We imagine that there's a first step and that it has to be done in some way. If you can drop that assumption, if you can drop the assumption that there's something wrong that needs to be fixed, if you can accept the moment and you are part of that moment, if you can just accept that as isness and see no troubles, have no desires for it to be different than it is, no projections or needs in it at all, simply a full, silent acceptance of everything as it is.
Yeah, that's why it's important to slow down, right?
Yes, to stop completely.
To stop.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, because that's such a spooky thing. Can you accept yourself as you are completely? Can you accept that there's nothing to change? There's nothing to be changed. That the you as you, to do all of your practices at once, right? To do all of your practices at once, as it were. So to hold steady the thought of Satchitana, the thought of love, being, existence, the knowledge of self, holding that firmly in the second, not letting the mind wander anywhere, holding it in stillness, leaving the body, leaving the mind as separate and apart. You turning in on the self itself, lose all sense of relativity, lose all sense of comparison, lose all sense of multiplicity. And from the center of all that, remove need, remove all the imperfection you assumed, remove desire, remove everything that makes you think that you need something outside of this moment, right? So this is what makes it difficult. We're playing with something that cannot be understood. We're playing with something that we cannot go to the mind to get. We're playing with something that that negates even the idea of playing with something. It's like we really do just skim along on the surface of this moment, riding on memory, riding on wrong ideas, and using those wrong ideas to form our quest. To form a quest, to form an idea of a religion, to form the idea of an enlightenment, to form an idea of a God. And we do all of this, and we're using all of these imaginations, all of these figments of mind, and we're assigning to them an absolute reality. We're assigning them an existence in and of themselves. And that's why we're lost. And meditation is not about manipulating those things. It's not about understanding those things. It's about literally dropping them and letting them bounce out of the frame of their own accord. And you turn inward, go beyond mind, go deeper than mind, go deeper than thought, thinking and calculating and analyzing. Go underneath that, And do you have the tools to go there? Well, you don't need any tools. You are that. So stop thinking that you need to grab and do, to accomplish, to get, and simply try and understand all you have to do is what you're doing, but without knowledge, is be. Without a definition, without a purpose, without a direction, without an analysis, without a calculation. Be in this moment. And just Stop seeking God, like Vivekananda says. Stop seeking and see. That's it. Don't go looking. It is. Don't go searching. It is. Don't go finding. It is. None of those things are necessary. So anything that causes you to think there's a first step is wrong thinking. So sit there in memory, sit there in your meditation, in your silence, in yourself, and just be there fully. And anytime the mind starts trying to take the wheel, oh, do this, oh, do that, oh, this is great, oh, that could be better, oh, you're this, oh, you're restless, oh, don't pay attention to it. It has nothing to do with you. It has no existence, no inherent existence, nothing outside of that which is meditating, that silence within you, that self within you. Nothing else exists. So what is there to disturb you? For a thought to disturb you, you have to give it existence. Don't give it existence. For a construct, for a state of mind to form, you have to give it an existence, as an independent existence. Don't give it that existence. You withdraw existence from all the things that you've given existence to, right? That's what attachment does. When you identify with a thought, that thought gets existence. It gets Satchitananda, actually. It gets sentience even, because you assign it to it. And that's why your thoughts talk to you. And that's why you argue with them, because you've given them existence. You've given them a portion of your Satchitananda. You've divided yourself. And so in your meditation, assume there is no step, first or last. There's none at all. Assume there is no problem, nothing to be fixed. Assume there's nothing to do. And stop trying to do. And simply be. And let the mantra happen. Let the silence be. Let the relaxation go on. That's your natural state. Accept it all, non-resistance, and see. See what you see.
I'm just thinking about the preferences, because we still kind of, our mind just constantly gives us the choices and preferences. Would I rather go to Vedanta Center for the weekend or for kayaking?
Yeah.
And what would give me more, not more, but at that moment, on my spiritual path, that would be experience, and that would be experience. So at some point, like we make a choice, right, based on our preferences. So does it matter or it doesn't matter? It does matter, I think, in this
It matters
moment.
when we think it matters. But to say there are no choices, right? And why would we say there are no choices? Because Thakur tells you many, many, many times, you are not the doer. So if you're not doing, if you're not the doer, what's the point in choices? So when the mind presents a choice, you have the acceptance, you have the option at that moment to give it a reality, to say, oh yeah, that's a good question. Oh yeah, those are two choices. Oh yeah, I have a preference about them. Oh yeah, let's do it this way. Right? So that is a way of doing it. And you can do that. We do that. Or
so just relax and trust the process.
What's that?
So just relax and trust the process. Trust that you guide it and everything is okay. And you don't need to stress about it.
Right. The choice will be made. Whether you choose it or not, the choice will be made, But it's not a choice if a choice isn't made. It's an isn't, right? Yeah, so yeah, you're exactly right. Trust the process. Yeah.
Beautiful, Lord.
Yeah.
I really believe that Mother really does give us everything we want all the time. And it's just we don't realize what we want.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of like that old preacher joke where the preacher, he's talking about everybody, going to heaven or, rapture or whatever. And at the end of the sermon, he's like, okay, who's ready to go? And everybody that thought they're ready to go, they're like, well, I was going to take my wife to dinner, or, they all had some reason on why they couldn't leave right then. And I think that's us. I think it's just the process of exhausting those desires. And as soon as we don't have desires anymore, then mother will quit fulfilling them and we'll quit existing in duality, so to speak, or we'll be in that Satchitananda.
Yeah, that's wonderful, because that's a whole other way of creating a path, is just that idea right there, that mother answers every prayer in the affirmative. She never says no, but she answers every prayer in its relationship to all of your prayers, right? So you might say, oh, I wish I was rich and famous, but the next morning you sleep through your audition. So the sleeping through your audition and your desire for rich and fame, they get averaged together. And what are you left with? The desire for rich and fame and no fulfillment. So it's mother takes all of your desires. And this is why we want that inner awareness. This is why we want to know, what are we praying? Every action and every thought is a prayer, right? And they get answered yes, 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 yes. But if you have no idea what you're praying, it's no wonder that your life confuses you. If you're not aware of what you're asking for in all of your actions during the day and all the thoughts of your mind, if you're not aware of what you're asking for, then how can you be aware of what you're getting? And so this is why Thakur is always talking about that single-mindedness. Single-mindedness is that full awareness of everything, right? That single focus, so that you can take your whole mind and make a single prayer. Mother,
Well,
I surrender.
Nothing comes into existence until there is a desire, so there is no duality without a desire.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you could literally equate Shakti as desire.
Yes, Shakti is the active mind, which is caused by me and mine, which is desire. Yeah. You can say that. Although Shakti exists even in silence. So Shakti is not that, but Shakti.
Yeah, unmanifested potential.
Yeah, she returns to her oneness with Brahman. So, yeah, but all it takes is one vibration, and Shakti is in full control. And that first vibration is always caused by an idea of me and mine. Yeah, amazing stuff here today. Really beautiful things going on. All right. Beyond the mind, there is no such thing as experience. Experience is a dual state, quite obvious. You cannot talk of reality as an experience. Once this is understood, you will no longer look for being and becoming as separate and opposite. In reality, they are one and inseparable, like roots and branches of the same tree. Right? So look at that. This is what we just actually talked about. You will no longer look for being and becoming as separate and opposite, right? You understand that being and becoming is, right? That they are one, and that this becoming, let's stick to what he's saying here. You would no longer look for being and becoming as separate and opposite, right? So you make a unity. This is that letting go of that first step, thinking that there is a becoming that's separate from you as you are, that you have to become something different from what you are in order to have what your desired state is. That's the trap. And so to see them as not separate and not opposite, which means to accept the moment as one, perfect as it is, God everywhere present, always perfect, the divine reality in perfect balance. So no longer look for being and becoming as separate and opposite. In reality, they are one and inseparable, like roots and branches of the same tree. Both can exist only in the light of consciousness, which again arises the wake of the sense I am. This is the primary fact. If you miss it, you miss it all, right? If you take that first step You've missed it all. You're going to have a marvelous journey of wonder and excitement, no doubt. But you've left behind the prize. You've walked away from the prize in search of the prize. And so that's the thing. And this is what makes it difficult for us, because this is an unusing of the mind, right? An unusing of the mind. And that's very, very foreign to us in our delusion. We always use the mind. Both exist only in the light of consciousness. And that's, you take one step back from the you as being and from the you as becoming, right? And you take that being with you, actually, because your isness is necessary, right? But you understand that you are the light of consciousness that is making both of those possible. You are not one or the other. You're not the being, you're not the becoming. You're the both, right? You are all of it in there. You return to the sense of I am. This is the primary fact. So just return to I am and become aware of being. Become aware of the amming that's going on with the I. The I amming gets all of your attention. Question: in the sense of being a product, is the sense of being a product of experience only? No. Okay. The great saying, Mahavakya, Tat Sat, is it a mere mode of mentation? Maharaj, whatever is spoken is speech only. Okay, that's the unreal. That's the changing. If it can be spoken, it's changing. It's not real. Whatever is spoken is speech only. Whatever is thought only, right? Thought is just a step before speech. Well, quite often thought is silent speech, actually. Whatever is thought only. The real meaning is unexplainable, right? Though inexperienceable, the real meaning is unexplainable, though experienceable. The Mahavakya is true, but your ideas are false. For all ideas are false, right? Because all ideas are ever changing. They come into being for a moment and they disappear. So they are part of the unreal. Is the conviction that I am that false? The questioner asks. Maharaj, of course. Conviction is a mental state. In that, there is no I am. With the sense I am emerging, that is obscured. As with the sun arising, the stars are wiped out. But as with the sun comes light, so with the sense of self comes bliss. The cause of bliss is sought in the not I, and thus bondage begins. All right. So that I am that is a false statement because it's still a duality. You still have the I am and you're attaching it to a that, which is something separate from I am. Right? So even that sense is a statement that can only be made from delusion. And this is just a mental state. Okay? This idea of yourself as being that is just a mental conviction that there is no I am, right? So if that is separate from the I am, there's no I am in it. With the sense I am emerging, that is obscured. The more you become I am, or the more that you
So the more you become I am, the less I there is to be the I am.
Yeah, no, it's exactly. It's hilarious when you start to talk, when you try to talk at this level that he's working at right here. You step slightly off the trail to the left or right, and it just becomes a game of absurdity to say anything, because you just realize that every word that you say is incorrect in a significant way, but is still in this moment necessary to talk about the right way. So it's just quite funny. So anyway, so you've got I am and you've got that. The I am is separate from the that. That's why we know that this is not an inherent truth. And we know that it's a concept of mind, or that it's a conviction of mind, which means it's a mental state. And the other, the sense of other, becomes obscured as the sense of isness grows, right? The other ultimately disappears. So as the sense of I am emerges, as your awareness of that, as your focus on that becomes stronger and stronger, the sense of other is eliminated, it's certainly lessened. It's obscured. That is obscured. As with the sun rising, the stars are wiped out. So as this I am becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, all of these ideas of other become farther and farther away from you as a sense. They get more and more translucent. Let's put it that way. They get more and more translucent, and their sense of separateness reduces. We see this in Vivekananda. You know, he had some great experiences about this. When the master touches his chest and starts to give him that spiritual experience, and Vivekananda says the walls of the temple fell away and spun out into the infinite, and I felt myself dissolving. And he cries out, "I've got my family at home." Right? "I've got my family at home. What are you doing?" And Ramakrishna, in terrible disappointment, but laughing at the same time, says, "Oh, even you are, calling for your relatives as realization is dawning in you." Right? So this notion. So the sense of other, becomes obscured like the stars when the sun rises. As your sense of self grows, as your knowledge of your interior I am becomes your primary focus, all the other things become translucent. But as with the sun comes light, so with the sense of self, so with the sense of I am, this being, it's not that everything's going away and leaving you with nothing. Everything is going away, and the sense of this, out of this being, is now arising this bliss. The cause of bliss is sought in the not I, and thus the bondage begins, right? That is the state that maintains the sense of other. We look for the bliss of I am in the other, in things outside of ourselves, in a glass of wine, in a good hike, in a moment with our lover. We look for the bliss of our being in the not I, out there. And that is our bondage. That is the fundamental problem that all religion is trying to solve. Stop thinking that out there is what will make you full and happy and make you a whole, make you a person. And once you've stopped looking out there, right, understand that everything necessary is already here, already within you. And you have to just simply silence anything that presents other to you in order to let this bliss of your own being, this bliss that's manifested through that you've used objects to manifest or to catch a glimpse of, to catch a reflection of, you start to realize, because in that silence, and only in that silence, can awareness, the I am, be it's always there. So it's not expressing, it's not even manifesting, it's just ising. It's just is. And you become aware of it finally. You're no longer lost in your thoughts. You're no longer lost in your quest. You're no longer set on your set of problems and set of changes necessary. You find that you're at peace. When the mind silences, you find a profound peace that's uncreated. It's there when you stop, right? And in that stopping, you find a marvelous bliss, an overwhelming bliss, the bliss of the ecstasies of the sages. This is that bliss, but it's already there. It's not outside of you to be gotten. It's within you. And it's this fundamental assumption that it's outside and needs to be sought, whether sought through religion or sought through practice or sought through action or sought through whatever. The fact that you assume that it needs to be sought sets up your bondage, sets the trap for you, right? The cause of bliss is sought in the not I, and thus the bondage begins. Questioner, in your daily life, you are always conscious in your daily life, are you always conscious of your real state? Maharaj, neither conscious nor unconscious. I do not need convictions. I don't need states of mind, right? I don't need to be thinking of something to have a particular experience. He's like, that's what I'm trying to tell you. You don't have to take a step. You don't have to assume a state of awareness or a state of consciousness. Neither consciousness nor unconsciousness. I do not need convictions. I live on courage. Right? Why would he say that? Let's keep going. That opens some wonderful ideas, but I live on courage. Courage is my essence, which is love of life. Right? So courage is, oh my God, these are some, this is going to be so beautiful to sit and think about at some point today. Neither conscious nor unconsciousness. I do not need convictions. I live on courage. What a powerful, beautiful statement. I live on courage. Courage is my essence, which is love of life, right? The courage of the love of isness, the courage to step out into nothing continuously, to step out on nothing perceived continuously, to hold nothing as a definition of yourself continuously. What an outrageous courage that takes to walk out of your house like Peace Pilgrim with nothing but a pencil, a pad, and an apron, and to walk across the United States 8 or 10 times over talking about peace with the conviction that I will walk until I'm offered shelter, I will fast until I'm offered food. Courage to step outside with nothing, to step onto nothing. That's just, what a beautiful description. And that nothing that you're stepping into is the very love of life, the very experience of this being. Yeah. Fearless. It's just
Well,
what a
somebody
yeah.
have fear that is courage. It's just that courage is the not being limited by the fear.
Absolutely.
Because there's people that have been very afraid, but with courage they took whatever action they needed. So I don't know how he means it in this thing, but in this sense, but to me it says that in spite of fear, you're
yes
limited.
Initially, absolutely. Initially, it's in spite of fear. That's faith. That faith is willing to take the step into nothingness, to step off of your assumed safety platform. Because that's the thing. If you look at it closely, you're going to see your own safety platform disappear. And so really it's the courage to look at what you're standing on and to see its non-reality and accept that non-reality and then just fall into nothingness. And yes, initially when we're standing on that platform, to take that step into nothingness is based on faith. That's why Thakur says faith is the root of all. You have to believe, you have to know that this is true and that you can step off of your ignorance, step off of the safety of your ignorance and plunge into the love of life, right? Into the very amazement, the ecstasy, the true ecstasy of simply being.
Right? It takes a lot of courage to know that we are immortal also, to think that I will not actually die. The body may pass, but still the self never dies. And it, in a way, it takes courage to know that.
Yes. Oh no, absolutely it does. And we love this. The just this clash of symbols here is what we live for. Just this you can just feel inside this wonder of, as he says this, but yeah, everything that we're talking about is true. But this is the marvel of grace. This is the marvel of faith. This is the marvel of renunciation, that it can be framed this way, that I live on courage. Renunciation can only be as great as your courage, right? What are you willing to let go of? How far are you willing to step out? Like Peter in the Bible story, when he steps out of the boat to walk on the water to meet Jesus. That is what this man is saying. I don't need convictions. I live on courage. Courage is doing. Convictions is just talking about it. Courage is stepping out of the boat. right? Courage is my essence. Satchitananda is courage. If you know that to be the self, the nature of this universe, what can you possibly fear in love, existence, and wisdom? You know, if that's the nature of all of this, step out there, you know, walk it, be it. Courage is my essence, which is love of life. I am free of memories and anticipations, right? Free of memories means I'm holding on to nothing. There's nothing behind me. And I'm free of anticipations. I have no future. I'm not considering a future. I'm being. I'm in this moment, unconcerned with what I am and what I am not. I'm simply is, you know. I am not addicted to self-descriptions. I don't need to know or have words to describe myself. I don't need to have preferences. I don't need my experiences to determine my actions. I'm not addicted to a constant flow of adjectives to describe myself. I'm not addicted to self-descriptions. Soham and Brahmasmi. I am he. I am the supreme. I am, right? Are of no use to me. I have the courage to be as nothing and to see the world as it is, nothing. It sounds simple. Just try it. That's the invitation. Just try it. All right. We have to stop there. I didn't realize I went on for 20 minutes. All right. So let me